Hello, and welcome to this video. In this episode, we are going to talk about the anatomy of an Excel workbook. If you are completely new to this channel, here we teach people how to become very skilled at spreadsheets. If that's something you are interested in, please make sure to hit the subscribe button and turn on the bell notification. This way, whenever I come out with a new video just like this one, you'll get notified. Without any further ado, let's get right into the video. The first thing I want you to notice is the name of the file you're working on. It is always displayed in the top center section of the screen right here. The moment you open a new workbook, Excel will name it Book 1. As you can see right here. If we were to open another workbook, that book would be called Book 2. Shortly, we'll be covering how to rename the workbook to something more meaningful. Now, the next thing I want to draw your attention to is this large area across the top right here. This is called the ribbon. The ribbon is a really useful tool that allows us to do some really cool things in Excel. And the ribbon is split into different sections. As you see, we have Home, we have Insert, we have the page layout, formulas, data, and so on. We will cover each of these particular elements in more detail as the course progresses. But just for now, I just want you to remember that this section across the top is called the ribbon. The next thing we're going to look at quickly is the Quick Access toolbar. It is this small area at the top left-hand side of the screen just here. Now, at the moment, all we can see is the Save icon, the Undo, and the Redo buttons. Depending on your Excel version, you may see other things here like the Excel icon. I will show you shortly how you can add more icons to the things that you use all the time. This way, you don't have to navigate through the ribbon to find them. The next thing we're gonna look at is at the top right-hand side of the screen. We have these little icons just up here. The first one is a sign-in button if you are not already signed in. For signed-in users, you should see your profile name and picture right there. The next item has to do with the ribbon display, and we can either auto-hide the ribbon, show taps, or show tabs and commands. I recommend leaving that exactly as it is at the moment, just so that you always have the exact view that I have. That will save any confusion a little later on. Now, the next button along is the Minimize button. At the moment, we can see that this is expanded to fill the whole screen. If we were to click the Minimize button, it will make it disappear down to our menu bar at the bottom right here. Now, we have lost our work. But we haven't closed Excel. It's still there. And if we hover over it there, you can see that it is popped back up a little picture, so we can either click on it to bring it back or just click on this Excel icon, and we will get our worksheet back. Okay. The next one along is the Restore Down icon. If we click this, it will shrink the size of the screen that we're looking at. So if you prefer not to work with Excel occupying the whole of your screen, you can use this, and it will shrink it down. If you even want to make that a little narrower, you can just come to the right-hand side here, place the cursor on the edge till it changes to a double arrow. Now click and drag in or drag out to adjust the window size. You can do the same from this side. You can click and drag in or drag out. If you just want to make it taller or shorter, come down to the button here, then click and drag it downward or upward. Or if you want to move in both axes at the same time, just come to one of the corners and adjust it the way you want. Now, Excel will remember exactly that size and that position on the screen. This means that if we click on the Maximize, it'll expand the view to full screen, and if we choose to Restore Down, it will go back to exactly the settings adjusted to earlier. Okay. Let's go back to full screen, and finally, the little X up at the corner here is to close the window. Now don't worry. If you've made any changes to your workbook and you hit close accidentally, you'll get a pop-up message that will ask you, do you want to save this file? So don't worry if you accidentally click it, you'll have an option to get out of it, in case you didn't mean to click it. The next area of the screen we will look at is the formula bar. That's this area right here. As its name suggests, this is a place where you can type formulas, but you can also use it to input your data. Whether it is a date, text, or numbers, whatever you want. There are essentially two ways of entering data into Excel. either directly in the cell or in the formula bar, which is this area right here. Don't worry too much about what we're going to do with this at the moment. Just remember that this area is called the formula bar. Okay. The next area is the worksheet area, and that's this area highlighted just here. This is the main area that we will be working in and entering our data and our formulas into. As you can see, it's made up of gazillions of little cells. So, let's just talk about these cells now. Excel is made up of thousands and thousands of cells. And cells are these little rectangles that you can see just here. Now, a cell is referred to by its column letter and its row number. So if we were to select a cell at random here, we can see that this cell is at the intersection of column F and row 8. And you can see that just here in the name box. Similarly, if we were to click over here, we can say that the cell is at the intersection of column T and row 29. Tracing the row and column of a selected cell is easy enough when you are close here, and you can quickly see the intersection. But if you move way over here to the screen, it becomes more difficult to trace the column and then look over at the row. So using the name box up here is a very useful way of finding out exactly which cell you are in. So that covers all the basics you need to know about cells in Excel. The next thing we are going to look at is the name box. We referred to the name box just a few seconds ago. And that's this area right up the corner here. The name box has a couple of functions. The first one is to identify the active cell very quickly and very easily. It has another really useful function which we'll come to later in the course. Now, let's take a look at how to move around the worksheet area. We have several options to do this. We can use the arrow keys, which you'll find on your keyboard and look something like this. And obviously, you can use the up arrow to move up one line at a time, or the down arrow to move down one arrow at a time. Similarly, you can use the left arrow to move left or the right arrow to move right. If we want to move around a little more than that, over to the far right-hand side of the screen, you can see a scroll bar. That's this area just here. On this scroll bar, you can either click with your mouse and drag it down and up. Or you can use the little arrows at the top or the bottom right here. When you click the down arrow, it will take you down one row at a time, and the upper will take you up one row at a time. Now, similarly at the bottom, right-hand side of the screen, we also have the left and right scroll bar. I'm referring to this scroll bar just here. And again, you can left-click and drag to move left or right. Or you can use the little arrows on the right-hand side to move right one column at a time. And on the left-hand side, you can click to move one column to the left at a time. Now, let's talk about workbooks. Excel documents are called workbooks. And just like a normal book having multiple pages, so can Excel Workbook. At the moment, you can see that by default, Excel just gave us one worksheet to work with. In the olden days in Excel 2003, possibly 2007, and 2010, we had 3 sheets by default. But at the moment in version 2013, 2016, 2019, and all the later versions, there's only one worksheet just down here. You can see at the moment there is a little plus button at the side. So to add another sheet to a workbook, we simply click on the plus button and we get sheet 2. We can keep clicking this to get sheet 3, 4, and 5. This is how you can easily add extra sheets to your workbook. At the moment, you may not see the need for multiple sheets, but it will become clear a little later on in the course as you progress. But for now, let's just delete those sheets we've just added by right-clicking on them one after the other and choosing to delete from the shortcut menu. There you go. And we're back to where we started. Another very useful thing to know is how to save your work in Excel. We're about to cover 3 different ways of saving your work. At the moment we have a workbook with no data in it whatsoever. So we'll go into the Quick Access toolbar just up here. You'll recall we looked at it a little bit earlier on. We'll click on the Save icon. So when we click this icon, this box will pop up now. At the moment, it's a save as because we've not previously saved this file. Thus, all we need to do is pick out a path. I'm not going to use OneDrive. I'll go to this PC or computer, depending on your version of Excel. Then I'll choose the desktop. And this will bring up the Save As dialog box, which is asking us to pick a name for the file. So let's just call it something useful. I'll name it my workbook. Ignore the other options for a moment. Just name the file, something that you can recall, hit save, and there you go, our file is saved. The next method we can use to save our work is using the ribbon that we spoke about a little earlier. If we move up to the top left, you can see by default, the Home ribbon is displayed. Right next to it, on the left, you can see the File ribbon. If you click on it, you'll come back to this area just here. What you want to do is come down here to save, then click on it. And just like that, your work has now been saved. The final method for saving our work is to use the keyboard shortcut, which is Ctrl+S. You can see if we hover over the Save option just here in the Quick Access toolbar, it will cleverly tell us in the tip box that Ctrl and S is the keyboard shortcut to save our work. You won't see anything happen when I do this. But when I hit Ctrl and S, that slight flash of the screen just indicated that Excel understood what we said, and our work has just been saved. Next, we're going to cover how to save as. That is renaming a workbook from one file name to a different one. The Save As action has a couple of different functions. At the moment, we've just saved this workbook as a workbook called My Workbook. It could be that we continue working on this, but we want to keep the original file, and keep the new file under a separate file name. That way we can always go back to a previous version of a file if we find that something has gone wrong. So now, we are going to cover Save As. Again, we have a couple of different ways of doing this. The first we will use is the File menu. So come up to the top left-hand side, click on File. Now, come down and choose Save As again and specify your path. I'm going to choose this PC, or computer depending on your version of Excel, then come to Desktop, and we'll get this little dialog box. And we can see here that we already have my workbook, the one we've just saved. But this time, what we're going to do is, we're going to call this My Workbook 2, which is a very creative name indeed. Again, don't worry about any other options. For now, just change the name of the workbook, and save it as a different workbook. Now we still have My Workbook, the original version still intact. All the data we entered in there will still be available, even though we didn't enter any data. It is fully safe and will stay there until you delete it. As you can see, we have successfully renamed the file as My Workbook 2. The next method we will use to save as is a keyboard shortcut. Because at the moment, in the current view, we can't see a Save As option. We can't hover over it and have Excel tell us in a tooltip what the keyboard shortcut is. So at the moment, I'm just going to let you know that the keyboard shortcut for Save As is F12. And that's the function key on the top of your keyboard. So if I hit F12 just now, you'll see that we get the Same As dialog box pop up again. We can just come in here, change the name of the worksheet, ignore the other options for now, and click Save. And we have successfully saved as a new workbook name. Okay. The final thing I want to point out to you is that you may find that the cells are a little small. It looks fine at the moment because there's no much data and the worksheet is completely clear. But as we progress and we get lots and lots of data here, it could become difficult to read. So if you look down to the right-hand side of your screen, you'll see a little slider with a minus button on the left and the plus button on the right. At the moment our view is 100% on. We can see columns A up to column U. We can see from line 1 to 23. If we want to zoom in to make the data a little bigger, we can just click on the plus button, and as you can see, the tooltip says Zoom In. And that will make each of the cells a little bit larger. You won't be able to see as many columns or rows, but it may make the data a little easier to see. And similarly, you may want to zoom out just to see how big your data is by clicking on this minus sign. Probably to a point where you can't read the data anymore. Alternatively, you can left-click this little bar in the middle and either move to the left to zoom out or move to the right to zoom in. Okay, there you have it. That was a detailed explanation of a workbook. In the next short lecture, we're just going to use a couple of minutes for a quick review of what we've learned so far. So if you ever need to come back to it in the future, just go to the short version, and you'll quickly be able to find all the different areas of the workbook on what they're called. If you enjoy this video, please make sure to hit the like button. And I hope to see you in the next one.